More so than ever this league in Path of Exile 2, you are going to need an all-rounder league starter. That means a build that's able to effectively clear maps, hopefully with one button, is able to take some hits and hopefully face tank most enemies, and also be able to do some massive single target damage to those big uber bosses. Because this new Path of Exile 2 league has a lot of new pinnacles. And thankfully, this build is able to do every single one of those things. However, a league start guide is a league start guide for a reason. You are going to be starting with absolutely nothing to your name, and you need a guide that's going to take you step by step all the way from the very beginning with no currency, no gold, no money, no items, all the way to that end game where you are blasting through high-end content, killing bosses, the new pinnacles, the new mapping content that we've got access to, and doing all of that on a comfortable, high-powered build. If you aren't aware, grenades are one of the strongest campaign skills in the entirety of the game. They are strong, in my opinion, right from the get-go, all the way until endgame. There is never a point in the campaign or mapping where you feel weak with this build. I have gone from the beach all the way to tier 15 maps and first tier pinnacles in solo self-found multiple times testing this build. And as you can see here, this is my character on day 1 gear in SSF fighting Zesht for the first time as soon as I'm able to get there. In my opinion, this is probably the strongest build that I've ever personally played. When it comes to clear in the endgame, we're mainly going to be using Explosive Shot. With the setup that we've got here, you pretty much are never going to have to reload, even with the nerfs to the 2 support gems that we are getting in this next patch. With one shot, you are clearing entire packs, and with the new updated support gem where you're only going to have a 25% chance to load a bolt, all you have to do is kill 4 enemies, and when you're killing 10 or 15 in a single shot, you'll still be completely fine. On top of that, we're also using Rotha's Assault, which gives us a bunch of additional maximum bolts, and whenever you dodge roll, which we do pretty frequently, it completely reloads all of your bolts. With all of this, you can just run around, spam left click, and AoE the entire screen in high-end, crazy, juiced delirium abyss maps. And when you need a little bit more punch, we have grenades. Now I know a lot of people are worried about playing a grenade build because they're like, I really don't like combos, but I would say grenades, even though there are a couple of them that we use, really genuinely do not feel like combo skills, because each grenade in and of itself is powerful alone. A cluster grenade can AoE down an entire pack very easily, as well as an explosive grenade can do a ton of single target damage, a ton of AoE. Even your flash grenades are extremely strong. We clear through a good portion of the early part of the campaign with just flash grenades. And as I said previously, when you're ready to get down to doing some pretty high-end bossing, you can do some pretty insane damage. The clip that I showed earlier, that was Uber Arbiter, which has 20 million something HP, and I essentially melted him like a blue mob. Now when it comes to this build, there are a few main mechanics that we need to go over so you can understand how it works. And first, I'd like to start with the main reason why I feel that this build is strong, and that is Sorcery Ward and the upgrade node Ceremonial Ablution. What these nodes do is they give you a generic damage shield that after 6 seconds of not being hit, or 6 seconds after it's depleted, will instantly refresh to full. And the number of the shield is based off of a percentage of your evasion and armor. And one cool mechanic about this is that it does snapshot, meaning things like Hiri's Ire, which gives us double evasion rating if we haven't been hit recently, as well as High Alert, which gives us increased evasion rating when on full life, allows us to snapshot this high percentage of evasion that we have and give us that full size shield. This gives us, in the end game, even with some of the nerfs that are happening to various mechanics, like 10 to 12k shield that just refreshes 6 seconds after you don't take damage. And on top of that, we're going to have like 80 to 85% evasion, and with the new deflection formula, thanks to the Adziri's step that we're using in the very late game, we are going to have probably capped deflection chance. So all in all, when it comes to the defenses of this build, it's honestly kind of insane. Another mechanic that we're using is the constricting command. One big thing about grenades is they are insanely mana hungry. So the main reason that we're using Constricting Command, beyond just the surround nodes on the tree being very strong, is that it allows us to use Defy to support, which makes it so that insufficient mana doesn't prevent the use of supported skills while surrounded. With the Paranoia node on the tree, that gives us 50% increased surrounded area of effect, and in the very end game when we get the Vol Alternate Corrupted Constricting Command, which gives you increased surrounded area of effect as well, you're pretty much always surrounded at all times. If there's an enemy on your screen, then you're probably counting as surrounded. So with all these things combined, we have an insanely well-rounded build that can do pretty much all content that you're going to want it to do. I've farmed about the most difficult content that you can do in 0.4 when it comes to mapping, which is like big juiced Abyss Delirium maps. And I've also farmed Uber Pinnacle bosses, all of the highest tier of any of the other Pinnacle bosses, and as you could see, kind of just killed them instantaneously. Now, if you enjoy my content and it helps you out, or you like the builds that I put out, make sure to like this video, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see more content similar to this. And without further ado, let's get into it. So there's a few things that I'd like to talk about just to kind of show you in game about how the end game version of this build functions. So first off, let's talk about Explosive Shot. Now, as I said before, we're using Arjune's Metal as well as Ratha's Assault. Now, these are both getting changed in the new patch. However, it's not going to change the build that much from what it is currently. First off, Arjune's Metal is being changed to where it is a 25% chance to load a bolt into all crossbow skills upon dealing a killing blow. As you could see in some of the content, we kill a lot of things with this skill on every single shot, so we don't really need to worry about that too much. As long as we're killing 4 enemies, we're still loading a bolt into our crossbow. And then we're also going to be using Ratha's Assault. Now, this is only going to give 3 additional bolts in the next patch. However, we can always get a second weapon instead of just using this one weapon. We can get like a Gemini crossbow that'll have like plus bolts and stuff on that. It'll all be in the guide, so don't worry too much about that. But the idea here is that this is going to make it so that you have a ton of maximum bolts, you reload all of your bolts when you dodge, and you also load a bolt into your crossbow every time you kill about 4 enemies. So you're pretty much never going to have to worry about reloading your crossbow ever. I'm just going to choose a random map here. It doesn't really matter what we do. We'll do Raised Fields. This is a tier 16. We're also going to be using this Unforeseen Consequences. So this is Unforeseen Consequences, an Abyss tab that gives us like more Abyssal modifiers, and then a Delirium here. So this is a tier 16 map, a bunch of crazy mods, Shocked Ground, extra damage crit, more monster life, all that kind of good stuff. So relatively dangerous map. The idea here is when you go in and you're killing enemies, normally with any crossbow skill, you're going to have to fire, and then you're going to have to spend some time reloading. However, when we have this setup in particular, you pretty much don't spend any time reloading. So every time that you kill a pack of enemies here, you'll notice that my crossbow just goes back to full, right? Even on very difficult enemies like this, like you can clear rares, Abyss rares in Delirium with your left click. And if you are, just running around doing your normal thing, you could use, like some grenades or things like that if you want to. Oh, this guy's standing in his thing. You can use some grenades if you want to. You can use like cluster grenades if you want like really big giant clear. As you can see, like I can freeze and explode stuff with just grenades. You don't have to use Explosive Shot. And you might also notice that I am just kind of ignoring everything. And despite this being like a big giant damage map, I'm just running in their faces and letting everything hit me. Sorcery Ward is just kind of a broken mechanic, if I'm going to be honest. Let me get hit here so it will start refreshing. As you can see up in the left corner here, you'll notice that it's counting down, and then when it does get to 0, it just pops back straight to full shield. So that's how the clear works on this build. Now, to show you how single target works on this build, the idea with grenades is that if you notice, you fire a couple grenades and they do an explosion on each of them. Grenades in particular are one of the few things in the game where they can overlap and they can AoE alt down. So when you fire these, even though there's 3 grenades here, all 3 of these are going to have such a giant AoE that they will all hit. So in PoB, I think like exposure and a couple other things aren't working right now, but the average damage next patch of a single explosive grenade is going to be like 1.6 to 2 million, meaning that if you're doing a full set of grenades, so I need an enemy nearby so that I can be surrounded. If you're doing a full set of grenades, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then those explode, you're doing 6 times 3, which is 18, and then 18 times like 2 million, which is like 36 million damage there. I mean, it's just an absolutely insane amount of damage. Now for the reason that you're probably here. So this is going to be the written guide, and there are 2 things that I want to talk about quickly. One is that there will be a live version that I'll have linked as the league is starting. You'll find it up here towards the top. This is going to be my personal day-by-day update because I'm going to be playing this build. So if you are looking for like new stuff, and if there's anything cool or interesting that I'm going to be using, you'll find it in that live version of the build. So make sure to check out that page as well. You can also favorite these on Mobalytics because that is where it's going to be, linked down in the description. Make sure to check that out so that if you do get any updates and stuff like that, you'll be able to know. And the second thing is I've put a ton of work into this guide, in particular, all of the written mechanics here. So through your process of going through the campaign, going through early maps and such, you are going to have like a bunch of general tips on how this build works, talking about the main skills, the mechanics that it uses, and also you're going to have extensive notes on every single step through the game. So as you can see here, I've got pretty much everything that you're going to have throughout the entirety of the game. From leaving town and what you should be thinking, to the Rust King, Lachlan, Act 1, how to go through Trial of the Sekimas, Act 2, how to go through Trials of Chaos, all of the further acts. We do an in-game defensive respec towards when we hit maps, what you should be doing and thinking about as you hit maps, and then also the endgame versions of the build. So once you are in late game maps and you do have a bunch of currency and you're transitioning into the high end stuff, you've got notes on how to do absolutely all of that here. So I've put a ton of work into this. I've tried to cover basically everything that I can. As I get new information, I will update the guide, and there will be the live version that you'll have access to as well, so you can see what I'm personally doing. So make sure to check all of this out, favorite it on Mobalytics, and as always, it's linked in the description. And for anybody who's worried, the POB will always be linked right here at the top of Mobalytics. If you don't care about the written guide, you don't care about any of this, the POB will be up here, so don't worry. And that's going to be it for the video. I am super excited about this league. Make sure to look forward to some updates that I'm going to be doing about this build, as well as some other builds that I have planned, ones that I played last league, but I never really made a video about, like an Acolyte of Chayula build. I think that Ascendancy is super underrated, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So remember, boys, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in Raid class. And I'll see you guys in the next video.